I am Father John the Baptist Anyeh Zancho. I am the Socius of JCAM and also Formation Delegate for the conference. And I have been in service since the 4th of September 2018. And that's 1 year ago here at Africama House. The Formation Assembly, you have to go right back to GC 36 and to the resolutions of GC 36 to see some of the orientations that led to us thinking about organizing a conference-wide Formation Assembly. But as a process, we have been, for the past about 7 years, been working on revamping formation in general. So there was a document that came out from Father General Adolfo Nicolas to help improve intellectual formation in the Society of Jesus. And that led to a 5-year plan being set up by Father Mike Lewis. And if you look at the consequences to this, one of the consequences are now some of our formation centers are now universities. So we are trying to update and grow our formation houses so that they are not just engaging in training of Jesuits, just the spiritual, religious side, but also training the intellectual side and improving Jesuits as an overall person. So now the Formation Assembly itself is focused not on intellectual formation, which is something that most people have been asking. So why not just go back to the documents that Father Mike Lewis had prepared and then move forward. The Formation Assembly in itself, I want to base it on some of the things that Father General has been saying. And Father General says that formation is not just training, going through an educative process, but it is probation. And that is the specificity of Jesuit formation. And now what does he mean, formation as probation? Let me give you some examples. The practices that we've had, for example, and Father General states this, that if someone enters the society later in life with already a career and he's already specialized, has a degree, the tendency is to shorten formation. Yeah. So that you have to ask yourself, what is the objective? Is it to become a priest? Father General says no. There is more to Jesuit formation than just preparing for priesthood. Another is that a man who is already ordained in the society, we are inclined to also shorten his formation. And we are not talking about intellectual formation here. And sometimes even the brothers who enter the society as candidates for brothers, after novitiate, there is very little else in formation as religious that happens in their lives. So the whole idea, therefore, is forming the religious in us. So preparing us to engage in the mission of the Society of Jesus. And Father General tells us it's a collaboration in the mission of Christ. The second point I want to make is that the Formation Assembly hopes to adapt itself, and you can see the theme hopes to adapt formation to the universal apostolic preferences. The preferences have been promulgated, and so the next step is, how do we engage the preferences in our apostolates? How do we train younger Jesuits to understand the full extent of the preferences and engage them in their own apostolic life? So that question is an open question for us right now. And we need to gather together as a family, as a community, to be able to then map out a way of responding to the universal apostolic preferences. And the Formation Assembly will engage that conversation. And what do we hope to come out of, to achieve here? We could also ask ourselves, given the current situation, what kind of religions do we hope to form in Africa and Madagascar? So we need to understand our current situation. We need to understand the changes that are happening in our world. We need to understand how that affects us, not only as individuals, but as church, as society. We need to understand all these upheavals that are happening in the world today, and then see how to respond to that. So that is where we are at. That is what we are trying to do. We are not going to be producing a huge document to try to define the religious life of Jesuits in Africa today, but we are going to be giving orientations. And then we are going to map out how those orientations will be put into practice, so that we can come back in 2 years, 5 years, and see whether we have moved forward in what we are trying to do. So, in terms of the participants, the Formation Assembly gathers all those who are involved in formation of young Jesuits, from provincials to formation delegates, to novice masters, to rectors, principals, and deans of formation houses, and also to spiritual fathers, stationship directors, and those in formation as well, our Jesuits in formation. I think this is really the first time that such an assembly, that it's gathering all these people, happens. And we need to take advantage of it. We need to look at how this formation affects young people and how to improve on what we already have. I think a lot has been done, but a lot can still be done. And the society in the world today is shifting demographically. In the next 10 to 15 years, many more Jesuits will find themselves originating from south of the equator. So the geographical south of the world, India, or the South Asia, Africa, South Latin America. So the question is being asked today in these conferences, Jesuit conferences of Asia and Latin America and Africa, how do we take up the mantle of leadership in the Society of Jesus? What can we do for the Society of Jesus? That sends us back to the question of St. Ignatius, what are we doing for Christ? So we need to answer the questions. We need men to be sent to the different missions that have been conferred by the Holy Father to the Jesuits. And so things that seem to look so distant for us, we need to assume them. So as Jesuits, we need to open our horizon. We cannot just be thinking about Africa, we need to think about the world. Yes, so all those things need to come in as conversations in the Formation Assembly. In terms of methodology, much will happen in the groups of conversation. So we'll be doing spiritual conversation in groups. And these spiritual conversations will help us avoid finger pointing, challenging, and help us to go to the issues and help people to understand the issues and then give proposals. And hopefully we'll come with the right orientations. So I welcome you to the Formation Assembly that will take place from the 8th to the 14th of December 2019.